Hi students, this is 7.1 and we're starting, the section's titled Beyond Modernism. This is when things actually get very familiar, but they also get really weird. So we're going to break this into two sections, 7.1 and 7.2. We're going to do the more familiar in 7.1, and your reflection actually is in response to that as well. So your reflection should be 7.1. It's on a movie clip, and I want you to be very thoughtful and real specific. We can talk about that later, but in this time, this is probably from we could say the 40s, 50s until kind of today. And in the time of let's say the early, this is the post World War II era. Parents at the time really wanted their kids to not have to go through the time that they did in the Depression. So this would be like as the baby boomers are growing up. This is the time when parents actually did very different with their kids, and I think it was completely represented in the arts, not only in music but also in visual art. This is the time when stuff got real lowbrow, or instead of being super ornate art, some art became really simple. Like for instance, if you know Andy Warhol, he did the prints with this Campbell soup cans. That serialism, which a series of a bunch of things with different, is very creative, but it's not creative content. Whereas somebody would say Renoir had very creative content and original. Jackson Pollock did that dripping. I saw some painting at the Museum of Modern Art from a guy from the 60s and 70s, and it literally was with a wide, probably a 4-inch brush, same color. It was like yellow on a large canvas, and it said at the bottom, painted just in like with a small brush, it said yellow. And then there was another one, wide brush, painted with a small brush, red. Like, okay, this guy's displayed at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and that's what he gave. Well, much of what was being produced musically, artistically, poetically, and a lot of, I guess I could say, literature, a lot of artistic expression was kind of angry. It was protest. It was people fed up in some ways, and their fed upness turned to art in a very unique way. They also innovated. They did innovations with a lot of electronics. This was the age when electronic music started to come into play. There was not a synthesizer prior to the 1960s. And then after the synthesizer came on board, it connected with a computer. We have MIDI. We have opportunity to make all these incredible sounds that humans kind of make, or you can reproduce the train engine by pressing a button, because you've sampled the train engine sound. You sampled a rooster. You can do it in half steps on a keyboard. All that stuff happened in this time period that we're going to talk about. It's also a time period where music for film became really important. The stage musical really came into its own. I mean, we talked about stuff that happened with opera in the previous section, in section 6, but the stage musical started actually in the combination of vaudeville and some other things that really shaped our society. It was more popular than film before film came and became accessible, and then people went to the movies, and then television came on. So the whole progression of how that thing happened, really the inception of it was the stage. And a lot of stage successes became films, and those became successes as well. This is a time period where there was I guess we could say, a dumbing down, like for instance 60s and 70s music. It's not super complex. It's actually really simple. Some early rock and roll is kind of, it's just super basic. It's 3 chords, 4 chords, nothing complex about it. That's a change from the highbrow music of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, even ragtime jazz. I mean, that has a lot of musical complexity. Some of what was being produced here was really unrefined, and it progressed and made, I guess, a large genre of unrefined music. So this era, tumultuous, really innovative, and very interesting.